This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I discuss the World Series. We talk about how we're shocked the Phillies are there, what the Astros need to do to get the job done, and will this cement any legacies in this year's World Series. We also discuss the Browns and how they have seemed to just collapse game after game. And then we talk about college football. We recap games from last week. We talk about games coming up this week. And then we also give our updated power rankings and Heisman watch list, all that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. This is Ben, that's Josh. He's back from a different angle. Josh is just changing the angles on us today. We both had some technical difficulties, but we're getting this episode out for you all. So be happy. It's not going to be Saturday. It's probably going to be more like Wednesday or Thursday. So that's awesome. But we are here to talk about a lot of sports. A lot of things happened, Josh. We had some fight card stuff. We had college football. We had NFL. We had baseball. We had craziness. All happened during the weekend. So, Josh, how was your weekend filled with sports?
I had a blast. I unfortunately did not get to watch the fight cards, and I mean, I kind of wish I could have, given
But you're a true fan.
All the opposite of what I predicted. So. There were a lot of great college football games on. It was tough to get me away. This was during, the Ohio State Iowa game, which we'll talk about. That was kind of wild to watch. Then Oklahoma State and Texas. I basically watched that one from start to finish. That was a wild result too. Then we had some interesting night games with TCU and K-State. I'm sure Bryce wanted to come on. That he's the college football expert, but I guess we can throw you right back at him and be like, well, dude, this is the UFC expert.
Absolutely. I called almost every single fight. Almost, not really, but still.
Could not find anything as to why Oliveira was an underdog. I mean, Bryce was kind of the same situation. Oliveira, all of his recent fights was beating the best guys in the weight class. Islam didn't really have any win worth noting. And for some reason, just maybe being the younger guy, maybe having Khabib in his corner was giving him some kind of odds. I don't know any kind of advantage that might have given, but Vegas was like, we like Islam. And we were like, okay, that's easy money on Oliveira. We both like Dillashaw, but then we found out that his shoulder got injured during camp, and he actually was basically taking on Aljamain Sterling with only one arm that he was really swinging. I think they said that they had to actually pop it back in during the fight, so he wasn't himself. So if I had known that, clearly Aljamain Sterling victory there. But the big surprise of the day was probably O'Malley beating Jan. Just given how heavy Jan was, only 2 of his 3 losses came to Sterling, like the belt winner. And then O'Malley, I mean, didn't have the ground game like Bryce said, didn't have like any kind of super big time wins, just kind of has a nice following, a big time fan base. He has a lot of cool tattoos and pink hair that, earn points that don't really give you any advantage in UFC, but somehow comes up with a big time win. And now he might actually, I don't know if that's going to propel him to a title shot now in that weight class, but I mean, seems like sky is the limit for Sean O'Malley right now.
All I'll say, Josh, is that these sound like excuses of just how great Ben Bowden is at predicting UFC. Like
you didn't predict. You were playing Candy Crush. Admittedly, you didn't know anything.
Did.
You were like that girl at the office that fills out a bracket with everybody in the office. That all those guys are watching the games, and she's just like, "I'm going to pick all the mascots that I think are the coolest." That's exactly what you did. You can't deny that.
This is true, and if you don't know, go back and listen to last week. I literally admitted halfway through that I was playing Candy Crush on my computer as we were talking. I was so clueless, but no, it was nice to be the one person finally that doesn't know what I'm talking about, and I could just be a goofball. So,
maybe I can pull that off with the World Cup.
Yeah, Jared could be like the guy that knows what he's talking about, and then you can, chime in your fun choices, but. Speaking of the World Cup's been coming up soon, but we had some crazy things going on, including, I don't know what it's called, like the World Series is about to happen, Josh.
World Series.
Which by the way, first off, I want to say that the Reds suck and they're not there. But the
Seattle Reds unfortunately did not make it either.
The Seattle Reds didn't make it, but the Philly Reds did, because we have one guy that played for us like last year. So and it's fascinating. So if you guys don't know, and if you're listening, you should know by now. If you don't, we know that the Yankees got swept. Shane Bieber has got a lot of rest now. I stole your joke.
It could have been us. It could have been Cleveland, man. I think Cleveland could have taken it.
No, I think no. I really do. I seriously believe that if Francona wouldn't have been confusing and done what he did, the Indians could have been right there. But I'll say, so yeah, if you didn't know, the Astros beat them in 4 games, which, by the way, hats off to Dusty Baker. He deserves more than the Astros, whatever you think about them. Just the fact that Dusty Baker's getting a shot, it's just awesome to see as a former Reds manager, which is really cool. And then as we were all shocked, not really, because the Dodgers just do this every year. They win a ton of games and they get to the end of the postseason and just can't do anything with it. So the Phillies, who shocked everyone, they fired Girardi at the beginning of the year. Everyone thought, hey, the Phillies aren't going to be that good this year. And look what happens. They get the first ever Canadian-born manager to coach in the World Series. So, Josh, we have the matchup. We have, which probably a few games have maybe one game's happened since this came out, but we have the Phillies versus the Astros. We have Dusty Baker, the old guy, the oldest manager ever to coach in a World Series or manage in a World Series. And then we have the Phillies, the underdogs, the guys that no one really thought would be there. Josh, give me your thoughts, and how crazy is this World Series going to be? Or is it going to be a quick one?
I think the Phillies prove that as long as you heat up at the right time, anything can happen in just, a 3-game or a 5-game series, or like in the NLCS, it goes to 7 games. But yeah, I mean, they have played more games than the Astros. So some of the stats that you're going to see from some of the players are kind of skewed. Like Bryce Harper right now leads
he's
the postseason batting average at, I think, 419. He's leading the postseason in home runs. He's tied for 5. He's leading the postseason in RBIs. Zach Wheeler, their ace, I believe, is leading the postseason in innings pitched and strikeouts. So, again, I mean, they've played, I think, 4 more games than what the Astros have. So some of those are going to get skewed. But, I mean, they've been out there earning it. They've taken down the Cardinals. They've taken down the Braves. They've taken down the Padres now. And it's all been from both sides of the plate, honestly. Bryce Harper has been looking great. Kyle Schwarber also looking great.
Nick Castellanos.
Yeah. And then, like I said, Wheeler and Nola on the mound. It's been a heck of a run. And I mean, I don't think they're going to win. I know I'm kind of giving away my prediction right now, but I don't think that, I mean, we got to respect the Astros too, right? That was the team that I picked before the playoffs to win the World Series.
I didn't, of course, because Ben never picks these right. Just like I have the Broncos going to the Super Bowl, which has turned out to be a terrible idea.
Yeah, stick to the UFC. But yeah, the Astros, dude, I mean, they swept the Yankees, who I didn't think they'd sweep them, but I thought it might be a series that could go to 6 games. Yeah. And pitching, man, I mean, you got Framber Valdez and Justin Verlander versus Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. I mean, I don't even going to win those games. Then you get to the plate, and I think I saw Jose Altuve has been kind of cold, but Yordan Alvarez has been heating up this postseason. He's had a couple walk-off hits already from those Mariners series, I believe. They're right behind the Phillies in almost all these stats too, despite playing 4 less games too. Like when you're running through, it's like, okay, the Phillies are up here, and then the Astros are like right behind. Yeah. So it's honestly pretty even, I'd say, on paper. With the way that both have been performing in the postseason. I like the Astros in 6. I'm going to stick with my pre-postseason prediction here. They got the experience too, which I think absolutely helps.
Cheating's great too. Yeah,
I think they've played 6 straight ALCS, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, they've been here a lot. There are some new guys, but a lot of them have been experienced here in the playoffs. I think that's going to help out a little bit. And like you said with Dusty Baker, I mean, he's a manager that has been here, a veteran, one of the winningest managers of all time. And he's been doing it, I assume, without any computer analytic data nerd telling him what decisions to make, unlike maybe Aaron Boone or Dave Roberts or some of these other guys. Dusty Baker trusts the $30 million players that are on the field, I assume. And it's been working. So we got the Yankees and Phillies. Do you have a prediction for this series, Ben, off the top of your head?
Yeah, I was tough because I'm kind of pulled, right? You like the underdog story. I have a lot of friends from Philly
Well, I'm
that went,
definitely rooting for the
yeah,
Phillies.
like
I think
that's
that
it.
but I think it'd
Yeah,
be awesome for Philly to win.
because I have friends that I went to Cedarville with that were from Philly, love the Phillies, and are diehard Philly fans. And then also I have, I have people that love the Astros. I love Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker, I was still so mad when the Reds fired Dusty Baker. That to me was one of the worst decisions they made because, yeah, he was having he wasn't success in the postseason, but he's the closest, he was the first, I mean, really the only manager since then that's done anything since the 90s, right? So for me, I just I want to pull for Dusty. I would love to root for the Phillies. So I was really who I'm rooting for. I don't really know. I just want to see a good series. But I'm gonna have to go with you. I want to go underdog poll here, but this Astros team, and I want them to win this. I kind of want them to win this to get the old one out of the way, right? Get the one they won in the cheating scandal kind of out of the way, that people focus on this new, fresh title. This one was pure, and as far as we know, and that sort of thing, right? But I just think talent wise, the Astros have maybe just that little bit more. And you mix that with the veterans like Verlander, like Altuve, and like some of these other guys that I'm sure I'm missing names, but you have Mancini as well, who I think also deserves a ring. I mean, the man's been doing everything in Baltimore for the last how many years. But again, I think it could go either way. I do believe it's going to go 6 or 7 games. I really do. I think it's going to go 6 or 7 games, but I have the Astros coming out on top. And but I think it's gonna be a great series. Don't get me wrong. I think I would not this is what I'm saying. I don't think it would be shocked if the Phillies won this World Series. I wouldn't be shocked. Now, do I think it's gonna happen? No, but I wouldn't be shocked because that's how well they're playing. And Bryce Harper is playing like the guy we thought he was gonna be when he was 18 years old. He's finally playing like it.
Yeah, I mean Bryce Harper, heck of a story, right? Basically has all the LeBron James coverage of him in high school, being a kid that dropped out and enrolled in a JUCO when he was in high school, playing against college age kids as a high schooler, getting all the endorsements and stuff, just taking a very unorthodox path to the pros, and everybody's just ridiculing him for it and saying, no, this is he's never going to amount to what the hype is. And I mean, fast forward, he's 30 years old now. He's got, I believe, 2 National League MVPs. He's made several All-Star games, and he's finally coming around in the postseason with this new team that threw basically the world at him in terms of dollars. He's earning that contract for sure at this point. And I don't think enough people, I heard it on a couple other shows this week. I don't think enough people talk about Bryce Harper when you talk about baseball stars. You hear Trout and Ohtani, you hear about Mookie Betts,
but they're not winning.
Right?
Those two guys aren't winning.
The home runs, but then you don't hear too many people talk about Bryce Harper. Maybe it's because Bryce Harper's kind of old to talk about because we've been talking about him for 15 years, it seems like.
But I think part of it, Josh, is that people were, I think, frustrated that he didn't come into this LeBron James type career early on, right? You look at LeBron, you look at some of these other guys, Mike Trout, who just had some crazy numbers. I'm not saying that Bryce Harper didn't, but if you really look at his numbers, it's not like, man, this dude's hitting 38 home runs, driving 130 RBIs, stealing 25 bases every year. He had these really ups and downs. And I think he just kind of fell under the radar, kind of okay, we talked about him. Now it's just
a little bit that last year with the Nationals, I think he hit in the 240s. And then that first year when he did get to Philly was another slow start there. And people were questioning if they made a mistake giving him all that money, but he looks to have settled in, gotten comfortable in his new home. And I would expect to continue to see him perform like this going forward. But
what also shows, Josh, is that, you don't have to, I think, especially with the Astros, you don't have to be this all new tech oriented manager to win ball games. Because Dusty Baker, I've seen him he does not care if some nerd comes up to him with an iPad saying, hey, you got to do this. He'll be like, no.
He just has a really good feel for the game.
Exactly.
And that comes from doing it for as long as he has. I think he's been around baseball for a while. I'm sure he's made maybe some changes to the way he manages, because as the game adapts, you have to be able to adapt to. You can't just continue to play old school. But I mean, comparing him to, I guess, Boone and Roberts, they got all these guys on the field that are just making $40 million a year, and he doesn't trust them. They care about stuff, exit velos, and they want to blame the roof not being closed right at Houston.
It's
and
no, it's
they point to that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, well, who cares what his exit velo was if he hit a line drive and got out? Like this guy, he might have only hit it 40 miles an hour off his bat, but it got over the fence, so that counts as a home run, and the other one doesn't. So.
Exactly. I'm excited though. I think it's gonna be fun. Philly fanatic. Can't wait to watch him just be an idiot. I just love watching that. That's just awesome. But it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a great series. I'm excited to watch it. Yeah. Anything else you want to add on that there, Josh?
No. Like we both said, excited for that World Series, and let's move on to maybe not so fun topics to talk about, such as the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, God, do you want me to start? Do you want me to go?
You start, because you watched the game.
Yeah,
I
did.
Much better rundown, breakdown of what you saw.
Yeah. Josh, I said it from the beginning of the year, right? They were 2-1. We both were kind of like, okay, maybe they'll be okay, right? Like we were like, oh, they're gonna be fine. And
we thought they'd be around the 500 mark.
We did.
That they won the must-win games.
Yeah, and then they've lost 4 in a row. And the thing is, Josh, is 4 of their 5 wins were by less than a touchdown, and it's frustrating because this week I will say there was a false start penalty. I'm sure some of you have seen it online. I'm sorry, I did not see a single individual on the Browns team move. Maybe I'm blind, but I did not see anybody move. So there's that. But there's also the offensive pass interference, which how many times do we see that called? And especially at a key point in that, there's a lot you could toss up with that. It's weird.
You'll call it on the defense just to make things interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot that could have went differently. But Josh, we're talking about trade rumors. Kareem Hunt's on the trade block supposedly. You just lost Njoku for 2 to 5 weeks. Another linebacker is out for the season with a torn pectoral muscle. I'm starting to feel, and Josh, I don't know, you can touch on this, but the way it feels right now is that the Browns are it's kind of like, I forget what team it was a few years ago, but they had we're in almost every game, but they end up being 4-12 because they just could never get over that hump. My fear is that once we get back with Deshaun, we could be, 2-10 at that point, 2-9. I'm not saying we will be, but I look at these next 4 games. You have the Bengals, you have the Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Buccaneers. There might be one win out of those games, maybe one. And it's tough for me to see. So I guess my reaction first off is that, one, why is Chubb only carrying the ball 19 times? Why is this all now in a focus? Brissett's done a great job. Don't get me wrong. Brissett has done the best job he could do with what he's got and the talent he has. But like you said before we started recording, his talent necessarily isn't for the type of offense he's trying to run, because it's more meant for a Watson type of quarterback. And so I'm very interested to hear your take on this and what you're kind of coming from.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to say that Nick Chubb hasn't been getting the ball, right? Because he leads the NFL, I think, in rushing yards right now. But
not in touches, though. Key point.
Another thing too, and this is the same across the board in the NFL. Once you lose the lead, or once you start trailing by 7 to 10 points, you almost always resort to the pass, even if it's not your strength. So if you're Cleveland, getting that lead early, especially when you can't pass the ball that well, it's super important so that you can maintain that running game. I think both games the Browns have won, Nick Chubb had over 20 carries in both of those.
Yeah.
All the losses he's had less than. Jonathan Taylor had a really similar stat line last year. It seemed like anytime that he finished with over 100 yards, they were undefeated, and anytime that he finished with under, they lost. So super valuable. It's that's how much more important it is for a team like Cleveland, who has a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett that's more of a game manager. I don't want Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball 30 times a game. I think he's had a game this year where he had close to 50 attempts, if I remember correct. Yeah, we don't want Jacoby doing that. And I'm wondering too if there's an element to the way Kevin Stefanski's running games so that the offense can continue to move the same once Deshaun comes in against that Houston team, so that they don't have to make too many adjustments. Okay, we've been running this kind of offense where we're definitely run heavy, been making a little bit more easy on Jacoby, and then once Deshaun comes back, then we got to totally rewrite the playbook. I don't know if there's an element of that going on. But again, grabbing the lead early is going to be important. Not falling behind by double digits. Keeping the ball in Nick Chubb's hands, which, I mean, statistically, it looks like they have been. He's leading the league in rushing, so it's tough to argue that. But, yeah, Jacoby threw 45 times against New England. We definitely don't want any kind of game like that going forward.
Well, and also you look at Njoku. Losing Njoku is huge, Josh. He was tied for second in I guess not attempts, but targets. So he was second on the team in targets behind Amari Cooper, tied with Donovan Peoples-Jones. And he was like, I think second or leading in yards or second in yards. And so you lose that big target. Now it's like you almost are in that point where you might have to start running the ball a little bit more because you don't have as many great targets. Again, it goes back to drafting Browns. But we don't have draft picks this year. But no, and I'll touch about the trade rumors here in a second. But I really want to just quickly say is that the defense, I will give credit to the defense. I know I've been the biggest hater on the Browns defense all year, but they did do a decent job, a good enough job to keep the team in the game, better than they did against New England.
Lamar Jackson, they
did a good job.
I think, and rushing, passing.
Myles Garrett finally showed up, which he's been missing the last few weeks, which was nice to see. But Josh, I have a question for you. Should the Browns be buyers or sellers at this trade deadline?
Well, they already bought the one linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And I guess what is going to determine whether they're buyers or sellers is how much better they believe the team will operate with Deshaun at quarterback. Do they think that Deshaun is worth, say 7 more points per game? Because if that's the case, the Browns, I think the only game they have lost is New England because the win against Carolina was 1 score. All these other losses have been 1-score games other than the New England one. So if you think that you're 7 points better with Deshaun on the field, I think you go and absolutely buy because the season could still be saved at the end of the season or in this second half of the season. And like we've been saying too, it doesn't look like the Ravens and the Bengals have been running away with the division like we thought. Let me pull up the
They're both 4-3. They're both 4-3. The Browns.
They're both 4-3. We're 2-5. So it's like, okay, we got 2 less wins right now. Not ideal. I don't know what the Ravens and the Bengals got coming up on their schedules, but that's the other thing too, man, is those next 4 games are really tough. And we could be looking like a 3-8 record when Deshaun gets back, which would mean you'd almost have to absolutely win out.
Or
So
we could do a classic Browns thing and win all these 4 games for some odd known reason and then be like back in the driver's seat, right? So this Browns team is so interesting, but I do want to touch on one rumor. There's a rumor going around that's a very actual truthful thing that could be happening. They're shopping around Hunt a little bit to see what they can get. What is the absolute minimum you have to get for Kareem Hunt if you're going to trade him away in your mind?
See, I'm sure what the Browns would like for him is not going to be
of
what
course,
they're going
yes.
It never goes that way. If you're trying to get a guy, you have to give a little bit more. And if you're like, okay, we're trying to shop all these guys, you're never going to get the offer. Like we got Amari Cooper for a 5th rounder because Dallas had no leverage in that situation, right? For a guy like Kareem Hunt, who could start maybe on half the teams in the league, but is a backup in Cleveland, I think the value of Kareem Hunt might be like that 4th or 5th round pick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
what did James Robinson just go for with the Jets?
I think a 5th. I believe it's a 5th that can turn into another pick, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, same situation. Like ETN is getting more volume over there. He's the clear starter now. I think Robinson, the backup, but could start, is capable of starting, has started before, goes for a 5th rounder. And then I would assume that's what Kareem Hunt's going to have to go for. We're definitely not going to pay Kareem Hunt. And we've seen De'Aaron Johnson step up when he has been called upon. So I would say get something for Kareem Hunt while you can. That'd be what I would do. I'd basically just take some picks. That's the other thing.
And the thing is, he's only had 9 carries for 16 yards the last 2 games. So it's not like we're even handing him the ball either.
Yeah. Hasn't even been being used much. Yeah, the other thing too, dude, is like you brought up earlier, we don't have picks. So
yes,
the temptation to sell is definitely there, I think. But if you're going to be buyers, you're almost you almost have to win out though when you get Deshaun back to even have a shot of making it. And I hate tanking the NFL. We don't really see too many teams try to tank. We might see them maybe give away all their better players, and then those younger guys, they're getting reps, they're getting experience, and they're fighting out there. But yeah, if you're Cleveland right now, I don't think that they are throwing away this season by any means. I would as much as I would like to see them get some picks, I think they're going to go out and maybe get a couple guys too.
Yeah, and I heard this thing, Josh, that I think is very interesting. So a lot of people have been coming out saying, "Hey, fire Stefanski," but it was an interesting article that was shared on another guy that it's called the Browns Report on Chat Sports. We had James Yoder on from Chat Sports, and he was talking about how people think that Stefanski had nothing to do with Watson going there, but in fact, in the meeting to meet with him, he sat and talked with Watson for like an hour, and it was really because of Stefanski and the offense and everything like that brought Watson to Cleveland. So you're not going to fire a guy right before you're going to get your star quarterback that he basically helped bring in. And I just think it's crazy because it's not all Stefanski's fault. Yeah.
Stefanski's job's not in jeopardy.
No, but
fired. Not until Deshaun gets a full 17-game season in.
Exactly. So I think you'll see Stefanski at least through next year, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's enough talking about the Browns. But we do need to give a prediction, Josh, because right now, standings update. I am 4-3. Josh is abysmal 2-5, but he's still only 2 games back. Josh, are we going separate ways on this week? Is there a chance that we go separate here?
They're playing Cincinnati.
The Bengals, yes.
Cincinnati on Halloween on Monday night.
That sounds terrible for every Browns fan.
I mean, what primetime game have we had this year that's been good?
That's true.
At least it's not Thursday, though.
That's true.
Shoot, man, it's I'm not about to pick for the Browns anytime soon. From what I've been seeing, they find ways to lose these games. They've been close. They've been clawing, knocking on the door. But I'm not betting against Cincinnati, dude. It's kind of the same situation. It's the same situation, dude. Yeah. That we Baltimore. Now they did contain Lamar, but again, Joe Burrow with Tyler Boyd, who balled out. T. Higgins has been able to ball out Jamar Chase at his moments, and I still don't like our secondary, dude. I'm taking the Bengals.
What's the score?
I think I picked Baltimore to beat us by 10. I'm going to go ahead and say it. This ends up being like a 1-score game too, maybe like a 28-24 kind of deal. I don't know what Vegas is predicting here, but okay. I'll go with a 28-24 Bengals victory.
I'm going to go Cleveland Browns 24, Cincinnati Bengals 21.
All right. Cincinnati's actually a 3-point favorite right now, being on the road even.
So all I'm saying is Cleveland Browns 24, Bengals 21. This is your moment, Josh. You're rooting against the Browns to lose for you to pick up a game on me.
Alrighty then.
So this could be the moment Josh gets in within a game of me. We'll see what happens.
I also feel like you're delusioning yourself because you just can't pick the Bengals.
That's also 100% true.
That brother rivalry with Jared, you just can't do it.
I can't.
Your mind will let you do it. And who knows? Maybe you'll be right.
Maybe you'll be right. Maybe.
But
yes. So that is NFL talk for this week. I know we didn't talk a lot about NFL, but that's fine. We're going to move into college football because we're going to talk about some games from last week. We're going to predict some games this week, and then we'll do our weekly power rankings and Heisman watch list, and there could be some changes. Who knows? But let's talk about some games. What do we got, Josh? Let's talk about it.
Well, let me quickly recap final scores here and how many got wrong. So none of us whiffed on Ohio State, but the game did kind of go the way that Bryce predicted, to his credit.
I will say that.
I did pick Syracuse to beat Clemson. Did I?
I don't know.
I think I picked Clemson. And
I picked Syracuse. I picked Syracuse.
I said Syracuse is going to get exposed, dude, because they hadn't played anybody, and then they almost won. So
I picked Syracuse, though. I did.
Alabama, I picked them. That was an easy pick.
I didn't.
Oh, man, dude. Never pick against Nick Saban after a loss. Ole Miss LSU, though.
That's true.
LSU was the favorite at home by about 2 points. I didn't see why. Ole Miss jumped out to a 17-3 lead in this one and blew it. 45-20 was that final. TCU, Kansas State. I picked Kansas State. Adrian Martinez gets injured. They only lose by 10. Maybe Adrian Martinez is a difference maker, but TCU wins nonetheless. UCLA and Oregon. I thought UCLA was going to it was a fun game. I thought UCLA was going to win this one with wins over Utah, looking a little more physical, ran the ball really well, but Bo Nix balled out once again, looking like a totally different human from his Auburn days. I picked Texas versus Oklahoma State too, I think. And I watched this one from start to finish. Oklahoma State ends up winning by a score. That's one that I'm going to enjoy breaking down later. Penn State, Minnesota. In hindsight, I did not know that Tanner Morgan was not going to play in this game, and I probably would have picked Penn State. But I
picked Minnesota too. So
I thought Minnesota played a similar offense to how Michigan does, which just obliterated Penn State the week before. So I was like, there's no reason Minnesota can't do this too. But the game at night, the whiteout at home for Penn State, they easily win this one. Yes, I was wrong.
And Chad Powers was there.
So really a good recruiting visit there for Penn State. Maybe they'll be able to pull him in the 2025.
For those of you that have no idea what we're talking about, then just don't worry about it. Go watch it on ESPN.
Google Chad Powers. But I guess we'll start from the top. Ohio State, Iowa.
Yeah, man.
This game that I was watching with a lot of Ohio State fans, and they just were so angry about how things were going at half. But I came up with the statement, if you guys didn't look at or watch this game at all, and you just kind of were checking on your phone casually, and you saw Ohio State was up 26-10, you probably would be like, "Oh, heck yeah!" But watching how that 26 points came about and how that 10 for Iowa came about, it wasn't very pretty. Admittedly, as an Ohio State fan, I'm sure you can. That first half was maybe some of the ugliest offensive football Ohio State has played all season.
I don't remember an offense looking so. I think the last time the offense looked this bad was at the Iowa game at Iowa in 2017. Was the last time I really looked at this team and I was like, "What?" I mean, Stroud looked like a little kid out there. I mean, he looked like he had no idea what he was doing. And Day said something like there was a different defensive looks, but it's like, dude, you're a Division I quarterback. You should read this stuff. But I will say this. Yes, I agree. The first half, I'm like, my wife's sitting here with me, and I'm just just in shock. Like, I'm like, what is happening? I mean, for granted, Ohio State scored every time they went to the red zone. By the way, they're the only team in college football to score every single time they've been to the red zone this year, which is mind-blowing.
Beforehand, I think it was 27-29 were touchdowns.
Yes.
So
and then
four field goals, I think, in this game was a little unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, Noah Ruggles, I mean, we've known he's a good kicker, but the frustrating part was like, and almost every field goal was after we got the ball inside of their territory after a turnover or something. I'm going, wait a minute, hold up. You're telling me, I don't care how good of a defense is, you can't find a way. And like they got away from the run. The one thing I was very frustrated about was the fact they ran the ball so few times. And the other issue was, it's not that because they ran the ball a few times. I love the running backs at Ohio State, but they love to do those jump cuts outside. Like, I'm like, dude, just put your head down and just run straight. Like, you don't have to make it all fancy, just keep running. And so there's a lot of things, and I'm going to break this down. I'll break this down on a video that I'll do actually after this has come out. But my biggest thing is just that I think what frustrated me was that it felt like there was no answer, and the fact that we couldn't figure that out until halftime, which was against a team with a good offense, could have been scary. But let's be honest, Iowa's offense might be the worst offense I have ever seen in a college football game. I mean, this offense could not throw the ball. The first play of the game,
that was the one
throw the ball straight to the defender. There's no one there. Just the defender. Petrus was bad. Their other guy was bad. They had 6 turnovers, 5 in the first 3 quarters. I will say, though, whatever Ryan Day said or whatever the players said in the locker room, yeah, outside of that first interception on the first play of the second half, outside of that, this team, like, what crazy about that second half, by the way, is the first play was interception. The next play was a fumble, which I just thought was hilarious, that it was just like this. And then Joel Klatt goes, can the 2 defenses just play at this point? Like that whole thing. But honestly, it's like a switch was turned on because we saw how good CJ Stroud can be. That pass, by the way, the catch by Marvin Harrison a couple times, the touchdown throw to Ibuka, the Fleming, who just, I mean, I don't know how that happened, but he got open. And again, people forget this Iowa defense was a very, very good defense, and they still are. And you look at 54-10, like you said, and you'd look and be like, hey, that's a great score. I love that. But it's scary to think that Ohio State on an off day can put up 54 points against a team who gave up 59 points the previous 6 games. That is what's scary. And I've said this from the beginning, not as a Ohio State fan, but as a general fan, this defense for Ohio State is not terrible. This Ohio State defense is getting legit. And I'm not kidding you when I say it's getting legit, because we've seen what they can do. Even against bad offenses, they've made them look bad. They haven't given them those plays that they've given them in the past where Iowa might have scored 4 touchdowns. Ohio State is playing at a level that I think even when they play bad, they can still win games easily or at a bigger margin. We'll see this week. I know we'll talk about the Penn State game coming up, but I just know that if this is how bad Ohio State's offense can play and they still put up 54 points, I'm a happy man over here.
I think the other thing too, just so everyone's clear, the Iowa offense through its first 6 games had 6 turnovers, and then they turned it over 6 times in this one game against Ohio State. So we can point the finger at Iowa's offense being incapable, right? But this was even a bad day offensively, even by Iowa standards. So that was all created by the Ohio State defense. And I mean, I'm sitting here when I'm putting together my power ranking and stuff, I'm just like, I don't know what to do with this, because the offense, I mean, if you looked at the final stat lines, like right here, CJ Stroud finished the day 20 of 30 with 286 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Like, if you look at that at the final stat line, it's like, that's not bad. But in the first half, I think he was under 50% completion. He was under 100 yards, and he had no touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much Heisman voters care about halves of football, because at the end of the day, you have 4 quarters to, I guess, put together a stat line, and the final stat line right here, like I just said from CJ, doesn't look bad. So I did want to point that out. We'll find out where I put him in my Heisman rankings, at least the watching from home with no vote. But yeah, that's I guess a good way to wrap up the Ohio State discussion. Moving on to the next game down here that was going on at the same time, Clemson and Syracuse, dude. Boy. So Syracuse is leading 21-10 at the half and 21-10 after the third quarter, with both teams going scoreless there. Dabo Swinney actually takes out DJ Uiagalelei,
which is making my Heisman list look terrible, by the way.
I know. I was gonna bring that up if you put DJ on your list later. I was gonna say, how can you put a Heisman guy that got benched?
I know.
But you do have a chance to correct yourself today.
I do.
That now, Cade Klubnik wasn't much better. He was 2 of 4, 19 yards. It wasn't like he led the team to victory. And Dabo said at the end of the game, DJ's our quarterback. This is just a bad day for him. Clemson makes the comeback here, but I'll tell you what concerns me about Clemson is this is per record, the toughest team that they've played all season long. And they had to bench their starting quarterback in this one because of how bad the offense was playing. How much of a threat do you think Clemson can be against a team like Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Ohio State, even Alabama, dude? Like, this is the most they'll be tested the rest of the season, because they got, like, if you look through their schedule, they got to play like Miami, and maybe South Carolina will actually be more of a challenge than what we initially thought too. But I'm not feeling too good about Clemson after watching that game.
Yeah, I've said it, I've had them in my top 5, and now I'm just like, dude, you're not playing like a top 5 team. Like, there are a couple 1-loss teams that I'll put above them. Like, I believe that are better right now than what Clemson is. Dabo, like, I just hate it because Clemson does this every year, right? Like, they squeak by these games, they win these close games, they get in the football playoff. Outside of those a few championship wins, they've got beat by Ohio State, they've got beat by a couple other teams. I don't know how much more, like, this quarterback play can't continue if you want Clemson to still be Clemson in 3 years. because you can't bench your guy and then bring a guy in who does worse. Not that he did worse. It's just like he
not
didn't
worse.
have.
He didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't.
Picks,
Yeah,
this
but
was
it's
more of a Shipley game.
Yeah, it's just like, but Clemson has been so unbalanced. It feels like one day they're passing the ball great. Next game, it's running the ball. Then their defense plays great one game, does terrible the next game. Clemson's just like this unknown, undefeated team. It's like, it reminds me of like, I can't think of the last undefeated team that almost feels like they should have like 3 losses. Because that's what I feel like. I feel like Clemson should have 3 losses right now, but they don't. And that's the weird part.
It feels a lot like 2014 Florida State to me.
Yes.
That was the playoff. They went undefeated, but it was in a weak ACC conference at the time, and a lot of those games were close calls. And a lot of those games, Jameis Winston didn't play the best. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall. They get matched up with Oregon, Marcus Mariota's team. I was like, I know you have to put Florida State in the playoff, being an undefeated conference champion, but they're going to get blown out by whoever they get matched up against. And they absolutely did. I think they lost by 30 to that Oregon team.
Yeah.
And I get the same kind of vibe from this Clemson team right now. Even the next best team they played this year, Wake Forest, that game went to double overtime. Was the NC State game, was that one like a 10-point win that they had?
Yeah, it was not very much.
I'm going to pull up their schedule here and tell you how they've fared, I guess, in their big time games, and then who they got coming up. Yeah, 30-20 against NC State. Florida State, they win 34-28. So again, a 1 score there, just like the Syracuse one. So they got Notre Dame next at Notre Dame. They got Louisville and Miami at home. We're not going to learn anything from those 3 games.
I don't know. I'm just saying with Notre Dame, that seems like a game they could trip up. And I don't know why, but it just maybe it's because I'm a Ohio State fan. I'm just wanting Notre Dame to get some good wins.
We struggled against Notre Dame, so hopefully another good team struggles against.
Yeah, that's my hope.
Maybe. And then they end the year with South Carolina at home. And South Carolina right now is 5-2, ranked 25th. They could get 2 more wins in their next 2 games against Mizzou and Vanderbilt and be 7-2, move up in the poll a little bit. But yeah, dude, the Clemson, it doesn't look like they're really going to get tested all that much. And if that's how they've been performing against their biggest challenges, it's like, well, geez, man, I don't think any of these games are like the similar matchup compared to, like, I guess the games that Tennessee has played. Ohio State's opponents even have been at least this good. Like, everybody wants to say Ohio State, anybody. I would throw some of those games they've played up here with the likes of Florida State and Syracuse, probably Wake Forest. But I guess did you have anything else to add to that one?
No, pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to that 3:30 kickoff game, Texas and Oklahoma State. That one, dude, padlock stat of the day. Never seen this. Texas committed 14 penalties. Oklahoma State committed none. Oklahoma State, the home team, wins by a touchdown. I would think that if the penalties were that lopsided, you might see a much more lopsided score. But to Texas's credit, actually more so Bijan Robinson's credit, and the run game, they were able to even hold the lead in this game for a while. And then eventually just all those mental mistakes caught up with them, and Oklahoma State and Spencer Sanders end up walking away with this one. But I'm just going to go ahead and say this. As much as it was true that Texas was looking like a better team with Quinn Ewers, I'm glad they lost this game so that we can shut up everybody saying that 2-loss Texas has a shot to make the college football playoff if they win out. I'm glad Quinn Ewers had the awful day that he had so everybody can put the brakes on him being like the next big-time quarterback in college football. 19 of 49, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks.
19 of 49?
19 of 49, dude. I can't tell you.
Oh, my goodness.
How many times he overthrew guys. I think he targeted Xavier Worthy 12 times, connected with him 4 times. And I think the commentators were saying that there was some wind there, but
stop. I see CJ Stroud at Michigan State threw 6 touchdown passes in the wind. I don't want to hear it.
Spencer Sanders was playing in the same stadium, and he finished 34 of 57 with 2 touchdowns.
They love to kiss butt to these guys. Oh, my word.
Yeah, so Quinn, don't crown him just yet. Don't crown this Texas team just yet. But Bijan had 24 carries, 140 yards, and a touchdown. And Roshan Johnson, the backup, had 5 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. So the running game was getting it done, to their credit. But any impressions of this Texas team? Do you feel any different about Oklahoma State after this?
I think Spencer Sanders has put himself up there. I think he's kind of made it. I mean, a lot of people have already had him up there. Like I know Aaron Lynn has him up there. But I mean, I kind of feel that way too. Like I'm starting to feel that vibe. Like I think Oklahoma State is doing enough to win. Do I think they could beat an SEC team or a Big Ten team? No. I think they're like that team that could, push the boundaries against teams, but I don't know if they'll ever I think losing Jim Knowles has shown it's been very evident. And I think that's the one thing.
Down to like the 90s and the hundreds, dude, when it comes to scoring defense and stuff.
Which shows you how good of a hire that was by Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what I think about Spencer. I think he's up there, I think, in the total touchdown mark, but in the other stuff like yards per attempt and just a completion percentage and stuff like that, he's got something lacking there. But I think I agree with you. They've been doing it enough to win these games. If they were in a different conference, I'm not sure that they'd have the same record. But depending on how everybody else finishes out, dude, like Oklahoma State, they got a tough one with Kansas State that we'll probably talk about. They got to play. Then after that, dude, it goes Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma, West Virginia. So this team could very well finish 11-1, depending on if Adrian Martinez is healthy enough to go next week. But keep an eye on Oklahoma State. They're not a team that I'd buy stock on, but they are a team that could at least make things interesting. If we have a lot of one-loss teams at the end of the year, I think a one-loss Big 12 champion definitely would have a case, though.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
So that's that one. Moving along to, let's see. Let's talk about TCU and Kansas State. TCU, man, might be one of the luckiest teams in the country right now because they've played Kansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas State now, and all three of those teams' starting quarterbacks got hurt in those games.
Is it lucky or are they targeting? That's the question.
If we have like a New Orleans Saints bounty case, I don't know. But I mean, the offense is still looking explosive, dude. Max Duggan's still balling out, 280 passing yards, 3 touchdowns.
Could he be making Ben's Heisman list this week? Could he?
He's been in mine. Will he be in yours? I know you're gonna have a spot since DJ Houston definitely not going to.
Stop.
But TCU, man, the offense is still looking great. I mean, they're the undefeated team in the Big 12, and I think that TCU Oklahoma State game next week, I mean, that's a heck of a matchup. That could be for number 1 seed in the Big 12.
Yeah. I love the way TCU's playing. Do I think they're going to be undefeated by the end of the year? No. That defense kind of scares me. And so I think it's going to be one of those TCU years where they get really good, but they're probably going to complain that they didn't make the playoff like they did in 2014 when Ohio State was chosen over them. Shows them that they were wrong. So, but I just can't see enough yet until I think we get later in the year, because I just feel like TCU has gotten, like you said, they've had a lot of things go their way. And we all know with these kind of teams, there's always that one game that when these things happen, there's that one game that goes against you. And I think that could cost them. And I don't think they're going to win the Big 12. I really don't. So, it's still out on them for now.
The other 3:30 game going on right there, Oregon, UCLA, which I thought would be the game of the week. Oregon wins 45-30. Bo Nix ends the day. Only missed 6 passes, 22-28.
Is Bo Nix in the Heisman conversation? That's the question.
I mean, he's got a case, dude. When you look at the
really good case,
total touchdowns and the completion percentage and stuff like that, like his totals aren't very high, but I mean the efficiency is definitely there. And this was, I think, a marquee win that he needed, at least for his campaign for Oregon to be seriously, because I mean you get just absolutely slaughtered by Georgia week 1. They haven't really played many teams worth noting until that point, but they've been winning quietly. And I mean, now they're back into the top 10 top 10 of the AP top 25. Get a big win over a team like UCLA that everybody was putting respect on.
That's true.
Got to keep an eye on Oregon. That Pac-12 race is wide open now too. Excuse me. Yeah, but USC, Oregon, UCLA all got one loss right now. I wonder how that one's going to finish out.
It will be interesting to see. That's for sure.
Yeah. We'll wrap up the discussion with Penn State versus Minnesota.
Penn State just finds ways to win, don't they? They just always are like that third tier team in the Big Ten. They find their way to just be that third team in the East that seems to never eclipse anything, but they're always just there.
They did plenty enough in this one, dude. Sean Clifford, 23 of 31,
dude, he did have a good game.
Touchdowns. Mo Ibrahim had 102 yards, but he only averaged about 3 yards per carry in this one. They really were riding on him with Tanner Morgan being injured, like I said. And Penn State, unlike what they did against Michigan, contained the run, forced their quarterback to beat him, and he was unable to do so. And then it really helps, too, when Sean Clifford just doesn't play like absolute garbage, too. So props to Penn State for bouncing back from that tough loss against Michigan, dude. Anything big to take away here?
I think Penn State has made themselves a little bit, I think, of a tougher game for Ohio State coming up. I think they answered some questions, at least with Mo Ibrahim. I mean, keeping him kind of down and then just playing well. I still don't believe in Clifford, and it's just honest. Like, after all these years of him playing in the Big Ten, I just never have seen him be consistent game to game. He always had these one game, and then, but I will say against Ohio State, he always has some wacky game that is just ridiculous. So I don't know what will happen. And again, I'm excited to preview that game because I think it's a game that either could be a close game or it's a game that could be an absolute trouncing by Ohio State. So I know we'll preview that here in a bit, but yeah, I just think, the West is so bad in the Big Ten. Yeah, you take away Illinois, that the West is atrocious. It might be the worst division in college football right now.
That one or the Coastal Division is tough. Tough to say.
They're just bad.
The Pac-12 and the Big 12 don't have divisions anymore, so we can't use them. The SEC East was weak there for a little while, but it's made improvements this season. The ACC Coastal is still bad. The Big 10 West, yeah, it's tough, man. But I don't really take too much from this other than Penn State has. And if you guys have seen any Penn State football this year, I'm sure you've seen the roller coaster graphic that they always show where they lose their first 5 of 2020 and then win the end of the year with 4
straight. They show it every game. They show it.
Yeah, the next year they start off 5-0 and then lose like the next 6 or whatever. So at least they aren't starting another roller coaster period where they lose to Michigan, they lose to Minnesota, they lose to Ohio State, right? Like they at least either put off that big drop or they aren't going to implode like they did last season. So I guess that's one thing that I took away, or at least I'm keeping an eye on as far as Penn State football goes. But with that, Penn State is hosting Ohio State for the big noon game Saturday, and Ohio State.
I love it's noon, Josh, because I can actually watch it at a normal time over here in Europe.
The big noon game, yes. And Ohio State's coming in this one as a 15.5-point favorite. The over-under line is 61 right now. So I believe that means that Vegas thinks this one's going to end up being something like a 20, what would that be? 28-12. No, that's not it. 40-20.
Like 40-25, 41-25, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I could see that being a final score, but given what we have seen from both of these teams the last few weeks, I'm not really doubting Ohio State as a team, but I do wonder how the offense is going to bounce back this week.
Yeah. I'll simply say it. I think you're going to see a lot more running. I really do. I think they're going to try to balance it back out, because when Ohio State's been its best this year is when they run the ball for 30 times, they throw the ball 30 times, they run for 200 yards, they pass for 250, 300 yards. And when this offense is rolling, and Josh, you know this, when this offense is rolling, there's no one that can stop this team. Like they're literally like, this offense is so deadly with everything. And I really, the most interesting part, Josh, though, is Smith and Jigba going to be healthy, and is Travion Henderson completely healthy? If those two guys are not completely healthy, then that could change some things as well. So, no, going into this, it's looking at Penn State and looking at Ohio State, I'm actually glad Penn State won because it makes the win look that much better if they do beat Penn State. So I think I believe it's Ohio State going to be a win. I'll give you my prediction in a second. But my 3 keys for this week is, here's the first thing. Can they manage the line of scrimmage? It's at Penn State. It's not a night game, but can they control the line of scrimmage? That's 1. 2, will they run the ball more than 25 times? If they do that, I think they're going to win. I really do. They'll be able to be more mixed up. And 3, will the defense still play the same defense they played this week? If those 3 things happen, I think it's going to a guaranteed win. With that being said, my prediction is Ohio State 49, Penn State 21. I think they'll get a couple touchdowns. Penn State will, but I think at the end of the day, Ohio State's offense is just too potent. I don't care how good your defense is. Like you saw with Iowa, you're just going to give up points at some point. So, but I think it's going to be close early on, and then Ohio State will pull away. And I believe Stroud's going to have a really good game. I think he's going to have a comeback game. I'm going to say throws for 350. That's what I'm going to say. That's my hot take. Stroud will throw for 350, 5 tutties, and yeah.
I think the Ohio State and Michigan fan bases are going to really be paying attention to this one because this will be the second common opponent both teams have had, right? Michigan only defeated Iowa, I think it was 27 to 14, given that was at Iowa, and everybody acknowledges that Iowa's home field's a little tougher to play at than most. But this one, I mean, Michigan defeats Penn State 41-17. I think Ohio State can definitely at least match that. No worries about the defense whatsoever. I think they're going to hold Penn State exactly to the level that Michigan's did. I am going to be curious about the offense, like you said. Will we see more balance? I think Ohio State does like to balance that out. It looks a little bit more so than in the past with Mayan and Travion in the backfield. Get CJ back on track here after the tough first half against Iowa. Finished the good there. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that Ohio State hangs 40 on him as well. Maybe we'll go 42 just for even touchdowns there. Penn State, I'm going to go ahead and say that's 14. We'll go 42-14. I don't believe in Sean Clifford. I think if Michigan,
no one does.
I think if Michigan can hold him to 17, I think Ohio State can surely hold him to that or less. So, yeah, I'm taking Ohio State, and I don't think it's going to be much of a challenge. But, yes, also, thank goodness Penn State won that game, so this matchup looks
actually means something.
Yes. But moving on to the next big-time matchup.
We only have a few games this week, so.
Yeah, it's not a ton yet. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Yeah. This is a super exciting game to me if Adrian Martinez is playing. I don't know what his injury status is. But nonetheless, Kansas State still is a 1.5-point favorite at home. I'm wondering if that's kind of like if Adrian Martinez comes back, that swings to like a 3.5, or if they're kind of put in the middle, or if they just don't know about Adrian Martinez either. And then once we do know, then it'll swing like Oklahoma State to 2 or something like that. Sometimes we see that happen. But at least right now, I like Oklahoma State in this one, even with a healthy Adrian Martinez. I think that, Oklahoma State just is disciplined, as we saw in that Texas game. They aren't going to do anything that is detrimental to them winning the game. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. They're not going to commit an insane amount of penalties. Now, the only thing that you'd have to worry about is a healthy Adrian Martinez running all over you because the way that we've seen him at some of these times this year, he's been in some of like Blaine's Heisman candidates, and he's definitely earned the right to do that. I don't think he's throwing an interception this year yet either. So a defense as bad as Oklahoma State's definitely might have their hands full with something like that. But I don't see why Oklahoma State's offense can't at least match that. Maybe the whole thing to watch for in this game, since Oklahoma State doesn't really turn the ball over, Kansas State doesn't really turn the ball over, is which defense can maybe get a couple takeaways. Maybe take away a couple possessions from the other team and give their offense the ball a little bit longer to maybe go up one score, which this game I think will be somewhat of a one-score game. But that's going to be what I'm watching for, and what I'm going to say it comes down to is which defense can get that turnover, that key turnover.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think if Adrian Martinez plays, it's getting more fun to watch. But no, I agree with you. I think on most of the points you said there, and I think it's going to be a tighter game, but I still think I'm going to go with you. I think Oklahoma State is going to pull this one out. My prediction is going to be a little bit, I think, higher than probably most, but I think it's going to be like a 42-35 game. I just think both defenses are going to be able to stop each other. So I think it's going to be about 42-35. And I think Spencer Sanders maybe puts his name even a little bit higher up to where he needs to be.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma State. I'm going to give them the edge in this one. But I mean, Adrian Martinez being healthy is going to make it definitely interesting. So moving on to one of the other ranked on ranked games is Kentucky at Tennessee.
Oh, Kentucky. We were talking about Kentucky, really? Oh,
Kentucky's still ranked 19, bro.
Oh,
talk about
it. Yeah.
I don't think that this is going to be any problem for Tennessee, other than maybe this is a trap game with
That's what
Georgia.
I was thinking too.
Georgia plays the next week.
Yeah.
Are they past Kentucky and maybe a little bit and blow this one before they can even get the chance to stay undefeated and take down Georgia? So Tennessee is a 12.5-point favorite at home right now. Hendon Hooker, we both love him. He's been balling out in these big games. That's the one thing that I guess would concern me is Georgia game next week. Does
it's
Tennessee?
Classic. It's a classic thing. It always happens.
It happens, especially with a team like Tennessee that hasn't been here before, right?
Yeah.
Like they're somewhat exceeding expectations this year. They're the new kids on the block. Could this maybe be a game where, like I said, they just blow it?
Yeah, it could be. It very well could be. I've been debating what I would be saying for this, and you know how much I can't stand Kentucky, not because they're not a good team. I just Levis and the way they hyped him up, and he turned out to be, he's just a little bit of a weirdo too. But they just, there's a lot with that. But I thought of the trap game, and I really believe this is actually where I think they could get trapped up, and I think they will get tripped up here. And I'm going to go Kentucky. I'm going to say Kentucky 28, Tennessee 24. It's not that I don't think Tennessee can do it. I just don't know about this defense. Can it stay consistent? Will it get stops when it needs to? And again, it's a trap game, and I've seen it 1,000 times in college football, and it seems like it always happens. And I just think this is the one team that, out of all the teams, that could get a trap game. And so I'm going to go with Kentucky 28, Tennessee 24.
Yeah. Kentucky's last game against Mississippi State, Chris Rodriguez ran 197 yards. So they are really good at running the ball, but that also is the strength of the Tennessee defense. But we also saw, as in the Alabama game, the defensive backs are terrible.
Yeah,
and
we don't so bad.
Think as highly of Will Levis as some others in the media do. But I mean, Will Levis also, I think, is a quarterback that is capable of going for 300 yards on this team. And I'm actually going to go ahead with you too. I think Kentucky might be able to sneak one out here on the road at Tennessee at night. And if they do it, I don't think it's going to be a similar final score to like the Alabama-Tennessee game was. I think it's going to be a little more lower scoring than that. Maybe around the 38-35 mark. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Kentucky to win this one too. Trap game, Tennessee, new kids on the block, looking maybe too far ahead. I think that's going to be the case.
Love it.
One more game, and it's not ranked on ranked, but it is notable because it's Michigan State, Michigan, the in-state rivalry there.
Could this be a trap game?
Michigan State has won 4 of the last 5 meetings as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that Michigan has not historically, but recently
struggled with.
So, and I don't think it's a trap game just because they don't really have anybody coming up on the schedule other than Ohio State. And I mean, they're not looking to Ohio State at this point of the season just yet. But I do bring that up just because it is a game that they have struggled with in the past. And
wouldn't it be funny though? Wouldn't it be funny if that's where they get tripped up? I just think it would be kind of funny. It would be interesting.
It could be, but I think this Michigan team is a little different than past Michigan teams. I'm going to go ahead and say that Michigan is not going to struggle in this one. I think they're going to win rather easily as well, even being the in-state rival with who they call little brother. But
they also got to keep up with a high state score against Michigan State as well. So,
right. Blake Corum, who I've had in my Heisman for a little while now, I think he's going to have a great day. I think JJ McCarthy is going to stay efficient. I'm not seeing any strength on Michigan State per se. It's not like they have Kenneth Walker last year run 5 touchdowns on him.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I'm going to agree with you. As much as I was giving you a tease there, I was teasing the audience. But no, I'm going to go Michigan. I just think Michigan is more strong, and I think they're more durable to do this kind of than I think Michigan State. We saw Michigan State just got bulldozed and bullied against Ohio State, and I think it's going to be very similar. And I'm going to go Michigan 42, Michigan State 13. I watched that Michigan State play Ohio State, and they were terrible. So I don't see anything different.
Michigan's the home team. It's at night. They're 22.5 favorite. I like everything about it. And again, finishing out their schedule, they got Rutgers, Nebraska, and Illinois before they play Ohio State.
I will say though, Illinois is that trap game for Michigan. That's the trap game.
We'll talk about, because if Illinois still only has 1 loss at that point in the season, it's definitely not a game that you can overlook.
And it's the same for Ohio State, because Ohio State will have Maryland, and Maryland right now is 5-2. So they both could have trap games right before they play each other, which is such a comical thing.
Yeah. But those
are
the big games of the week.
I love it.
You noticed that I skipped over Georgia, Florida, because I don't think that one's worth noting.
Have you noticed, everyone, that Josh has slowly been talking less of Florida as the year's been going on? But we all knew that would happen. Hey, we all knew it was going to happen.
We didn't, though.
I'm just kidding. I'm giving you a hard time.
Georgia's a 30-point favorite in that game. I don't think
oh my gosh.
And it's the world's largest cocktail party, big time rivalry game that but Florida
30
is not.
Point.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was last I checked. I'm gonna check that out here.
Oh my word.
But it was something wild like that, dude. I was like,
how does it feel to be a Florida fan right now, Josh?
Let's see. Oh, it's 22.5. Someone else.
Sorry. 22. Sorry. Just a little bit.
I'm skipping mixing up my spreads, but
I'll say is it's going to be a great weekend of college football. But before we finish the show, as we do every week of college football season, updating the rankings, we're updating the Heisman list. So we're going to start with the power rankings. Josh, should I go through the power rankings from last week just for I guess I'll just go through it so everyone understands where we were at last week. So we had our friend Bryce Palm was our guest last week. And so this was my list last week. Ohio State was at 1 for me. Georgia was at 2, Tennessee at 3, Michigan at 4, and Clemson at 5. We'll talk about that in a second. That was for me. Josh had Ohio State at 1, Tennessee at 2, Georgia at 3. We had Michigan at 4, and then Clemson at 5, which I'm sure he will address as well. And then Bryce had Georgia at 1, Ohio State 2, Tennessee at 3, Alabama at 4, and Michigan at 5. So, it was an interesting list. But Josh, I'll tell you this. My list in the top 4 is not changing. I can tell you that much right now. And actually at 5, I'm actually going to put Alabama back in, because honestly, I look at Clemson and TCU and I go, if they played right now against Alabama, do I pick Alabama to lose any of those games? And the answer is no. And so I just think Alabama's going to get, Bryce Young's going to get more healthy. I think the defense is going to start playing a little bit better. I don't know how much better. And I think we could see them play a SEC championship game and then make the playoff game. I don't know. But what I do know is that right now I believe Alabama's the 5th best team. So my list for this week is Ohio State at 1, because I think they are the best team overall right now in college football. Georgia, I believe, is the 2nd best team. And Tennessee, like I said, I can't put them any higher if I think they're going to lose this week. So I think Tennessee's at 3, and then Michigan at 4, and then 5, Alabama. That's my list. Josh, we don't know who the guest is this week for our power rankings, so it's just us two, just for you all to know. But Josh, go ahead and give me yours. Is it the same?
Top 4 teams are the same. I'm going to slightly alter them as well. I'm going to keep Ohio State at 1. As much as the offense struggled, we do know that the defense can step up, score points, and win games. And I'm not sure how many other defenses we can say that about at this point. But I'm going to bump up Georgia to 2 and act on that Kentucky beating Tennessee prediction. I had Tennessee at 2 before. I'm going to go ahead and throw Georgia at 2, and then I'm going to put Tennessee at 3. We're going to keep Michigan at 4. And then at 5, it's tough, dude, because like I was saying, TCU's undefeated, Clemson's undefeated. We doubt Clemson's offense. We doubt TCU's defense. Oregon definitely has a case now after that win over UCLA to be up there, just the one loss to Georgia. USC, who we've been high on, they've been a little iffy at times. They were on a bye this last week, I believe. And then Alabama, like you said, I mean, the only loss they've had was a 3-point loss on the road to a currently top 5 ranked team. So it's kind of tough to say, but right now I think I'm going to go ahead and put Alabama at 5 for now as well. And we'll see how much crow I end up eating for that one. But it's just like, I think Alabama would beat Clemson right now.
Yeah.
I think Alabama would beat Oregon right now, so.
I will say, though, Josh, we're about to get ridiculed for having the exact same list this week for the first time ever. I think it's the first time this year that we've had the exact same list. So
the same list from 1 to 5 in the same order.
Hey, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change
that kind of plays into the fact that we are 8 weeks into the season now, and we got so much data that the top teams really are separating themselves.
Yes, this is true.
And like there's a clear gap right now between the main 4 or 5 teams right now. So
yeah, I agree. And
too much difference other than maybe one team above another, but
that is our power rankings for this week 9. I mean, technically it's week 8, but we counted the week 0, so week 9. So week 9, those are our power rankings, and we're going to do our Heisman list. I'll let Josh start, but before we do that, I'm going to go over what our lists were for last week. Myself, I had CJ Stroud at 1. I had Hendon Hooker 2. I had DJU at 3, which Josh has not let down this whole episode. At 4, I had Drake May. And at 5, I had DTR, who's just, had a great year. We'll see if it changes during this week's episode. And then for Josh, he had CJ Stroud 1, Hendon Hooker 2. He had Blake Corum at 3. He had Drake May at 4, and then he had his man, Max Duggan, at 5. Will it change? We shall see. And then Bryce, who admittedly said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go with what I think. And after you guys talk, he put CJ Stroud 1, Hendon Hooker 2, Bryce Young at 3, DTR at 4, and then Max Duggan at 5. Josh, I'll let you start. Is yours staying the same? Is it similar, or is it completely different?
It's staying the same, dude. The same 5 guys.
Wow.
The 3rd straight week that I've done that.
Look at you consistently right there.
I did think a long time about bumping Hendon Hooker up to 1. I did, especially after that first half with CJ Stroud. But I think you got to be fair and say that football games are 4 quarters. They're not 2 games that are each 2 quarters. And the final stat of the day with CJ was not so bad that I think that Hendon Hooker should pass him at this point. So that was the reasoning behind that, a little bit about my thought process. I still have Blake Corum a lot being on Michigan. I think he's going to be having a case by the end of the year. Still leading the league in rushing touchdowns. Drake May's still up there in many of the statistical categories. And dude, North Carolina very quietly is 6-1.
I know.
They might have something to say by the end of the season if they can keep this up. They're overcoming those issues on defense. And then Max Duggan, dude, I've been kind of the front runner on the Max Duggan hype train for the Heisman, but he's still been maintaining that Heisman pace. His team is still winning. His offense is still explosive. So that top 5, I think this is the 3rd straight week I've had all 5 of those guys in that order.
So, Josh, do you think mine has changed?
I think you're definitely going to take DJU out. I don't know who you're going to put in instead, though.
Would you ridicule me if I had DJU still in?
Yes, I would, because you can't be a Heisman and be benched in your most season game of the season.
I'm kidding. I don't have him in there anymore. But I CJ Stroud 1. I never thought about putting Hendon Hooker. I think CJ Stroud is just, like you said, it's a full game. He ended up having some good numbers, and he's so persistent. And he doesn't get knocked down. Like, he's going to get back up. He's going to try to figure it out. And I really saw what he did, and I think that's where he deserves. Hendon Hooker, again, I think it goes like this: CJ Stroud, Hendon Hooker, everyone else. I don't think there's a huge big gap. At 3, I have Drake May. Again, I'm with you. UNC is having a secretly good year, and he's having a great year as well, stat wise. He's second in touchdown passes and so on. He's having a good year. At 4, I have Chase Brown from Illinois University, or the University of Illinois, the running back. He leads the college football in rushing. He's just like, he's looked good. Like it maybe it's part of me that I can't put Blake Corum. Like, it's just, there's part of me in there. But in general, though, if you look at Chase Brown and what he's done, he's played very well consistently, just like Blake Corum, almost kind of identical. And you look at the numbers in some cases, he has over 1,000 yards rushing already. But I would love to see Chase Brown versus the Michigan defense. I think that's going to be awesome to watch. So I have Chase Brown at 4, and at 5, I do not have DTR anymore. I have jumped on the train, and Max Duggan has jumped in my list. Max Duggan at 5. I can't believe I'm saying it because I was kind of against it, but you just look what he's doing and you can't not put him in there. So that is my list. Josh, what do you think? You can criticize it if you'd like.
I'm going to say that you should definitely have Corum in there over Brown. Brown's gotten much more volume this season. That's why his total rushing yards are higher. Blake Corum's yards per carry is higher. His rushing touchdowns, he's got almost 3 times the amounts. But, I mean, most people, even the Heisman voters, dude, they tend to look at totals instead of, like, the efficiency stuff. And it's not like Blake Corum has terrible totals. That's just
If you look at him, Chase Brown, this is his totals, by the way: 151 yards, 199 yards, 146 yards, 108 yards, 129 yards, 146 yards, 180 yards on carries of 19, 36, 20, 20, 25, 31, 41.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's just if Blake Corum isn't playing those first 3 games of the season where he's only in the first half, that his totals are right up there with it, because Brown only has
4 touchdowns. He only has 4 touchdowns, by the way.
And he has 158 more yards while also having almost 50 more carries.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to toss up either way. Like, Blake Corum for me is 5B right now. Like, if it's Max Duggan at 5A, like, I think Blake Corum's also up there. But again, I'm sorry, I'm a Ohio State fan, and it pains me sometimes to put those guys up there. But I'm trying to be non-biased. I just feel like I've watched tape of both guys, and it's just, for me, it's the toss-up. I will say that Blake Corum does have way more touchdowns. And I mean, Brown has 4 touchdowns on the year, by the way. So it's like, you could go either way, but yeah, I'm going to go Chase Brown for now. Could that change after this week? Absolutely. We'll see what happens. So those are our list. Josh, what an episode. We are back with a bunch of sports, and I love it.
Defeating all the technical difficulties along the way.
Absolutely.
That technology throws at us.
Hey, I love it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. If you love watching the episode, go ahead and click that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button. Just let us know that you like it. Comment below. Is Ben crazy for not having Blake Corum in his top 5? Comment. Let me know. I don't know. We'll see. And again, if you want to follow us on Instagram, go ahead and follow us at baseline.podcast, where you can see our different stories that we're posting, different of our rankings and things like that will be going up as well. And as we get closer to the college football playoff, I have clipped together what Aaron Lynn thinks of the college football playoff. It's pretty crazy, and it's actually pretty true. So it's clipped up. So I think it comes when the rankings come out, I think in 2 weeks. So yeah. So once they come out, right before they happen, I'll be posting that. It's all clipped up. It's literally on my computer, ready to be posted, but I'm waiting because I want you guys to be in that mode of college football rankings, and then hear Aaron explain why he thinks some things are a little messed up with the way it's going and the way it's aiming to go. So all that is going to be coming out. And also make sure you go ahead and like us on, or rate us on Spotify. Let us know what you think on there as well, and comment anything you would like. So who's better looking? It's always what I go to, but you never know. Anyways, thank you guys for watching so much, and hope you have a great weekend watching some baseball, football, whatever, basketball, whatever you like. And until next time, we'll see ya.